Yeah, thanks for diving into that. So where do you see Steem in the next 5 to 10 years? What do you see happening with the blockchain itself?
The most advanced insight I can give with respect to the future of Steem and the blockchain space as a whole, which comes from my interactions with top level developers from the community like Yabu P. Matt from Steem Monsters, and then internally Vandenberg, is that, and this is stuff that I don't think anybody else sees coming yet. The real game changer moving forward isn't going to be about smart contracts. It's going to be about blockchains that really maximize the dichotomy of hard consensus and soft consensus and manage to optimize the protocol so as to support both of these capabilities in the appropriate proportions. And so I'll explain what I mean by hard consensus and soft consensus. Hard consensus is smart contracts, which is kind of a stupid marketing term that doesn't really make much sense. It's code that's executed by a decentralized network of computers, typically in like a blockchain structure. And it's very inefficient and it's very expensive. But there are lots of benefits that you get from executing code through a decentralized network. Mainly, you can trust it. Nobody's controlling it. No one person or entity or company is executing that code. The network is executing that code. But it's extremely expensive. And so the more computations that are done by the network, the more expensive it becomes to use the network for everyone. And so what we did with Steem was we said, we're not gonna let anyone run any kind of smart contract on Steem. We're gonna put only the smart contracts that are necessary for powering user-generated content web applications on the blockchain, and then you got to figure everything else out yourself. And speaking of kind of like the history, while they were doing this, that was the strategy all along. It was an application-specific blockchain for web applications. So we're going to have comments, we're going to have posts, we're going to have account names, and that's it. Upvotes, downvotes, proof of brain. It does get complex. See, that's the thing, is even a application-specific blockchain quickly gets extremely complex, but limited, but it's bounded. And while they were doing that, they went, we really need to add follows, and we really need to add tags to steemit.com. But we don't want to change the entire blockchain to do this. And we don't want to change the blockchain for tags and follows when we're just going to have to change it again the next time we come up with an idea. And so their solution was the introduction of the custom JSON op into the blockchain, which is basically a field that just lets you store JavaScript on the blockchain. And so what that enabled us to do is say, hey, these are the follows, these are the tags, and the information is stored on the Steem blockchain, not on anybody's computer, and we just show it to you on steemit.com. And of course, nobody complained about that. Nobody thought it was a big issue, an issue at all, because it's stored on the blockchain. But technically, it's that's soft consensus. That's not hard consensus. And it was really a child of necessity. They had a problem they needed solved, and that was the solution to that problem. But over time, storing code in custom JSON ops became more and more popular and more useful, not just within steemit.com, but in other apps as well. And eventually, Steem Monsters really took it to the next level and used custom JSON ops to power an application that isn't really social at all, but is a game, and just uses our blockchain to store all the data that they're using to power their game. But they process that code, they compute that code on their own servers so that they can deliver an extremely good user experience to their users. And of course, nobody complained. Nobody was like, but these aren't technically smart contracts, right? Nobody cares. Nobody cares if they're smart contracts. Users care about whether the application works and whether it's possible to validate that the code is being executed properly, that it can be audited if they so choose. If they're a developer and they want to run their own version of the game, or if they want to process the code themselves or compute the code themselves just to validate that SteamMonsters.com is being faithful, then they can. But the thing is that Steem Monsters, the company, has a vested interest in executing the code reliably. They literally print money out of thin air. They create their cards out of thin air. They're non-fungible tokens that they store on the blockchain and that people buy because they love the intellectual property and they want to own their own cards. And because that token can be transferred to their account, they feel that ownership, they have that ownership, they can sell those tokens whenever they want. Nobody can take those tokens away from them. And that's what users really want. And so if you've got a printing press and all you have to do in order to maintain that printing press is to faithfully execute the code that anyone can validate, then why in God's name would you not do that? And so they have had plans for decentralizing more and enabling people to run their own nodes to process their transactions and like validate the decentralization of it all, but they continually delay them because none of their users care, because it's not in their best interest, because they just want an app that works and their incentives are aligned as Steem stakeholders, as Steem Monsters card holders. And so that's, Steem Monsters is a really great example of soft consensus. And then of course, Drug Wars now, drugwars.io has really not taken it to the next level, but really iterated on what Steem Monsters did to build their own application, which is very similar, but it's a different game. And that's the beauty of this, is that we can all build great applications leveraging this blockchain that adds value to the Steem users. I'm sure that Steem Monsters players love playing Drug Wars, and they love posting on steemit.com. And so everybody wins there. And so really what we're doing as a team, and this isn't like our stated mission or vision or anything, but I've had this conversation with Vandenberg, and he agrees that, you know, this is where we're moving, whether we articulate it or not. But what's really special about Steem is that we're the only ones who really have a blockchain that is optimized not just for smart contracts, not just for hard consensus code that's executed by a decentralized network, and creating the code that is great for powering web applications, great for powering decentralized web applications. But we're also pioneering soft consensus. And we're really the best. I mean, we're the best blockchain if you want to build a web application. And we're the best blockchain if you want to leverage soft consensus. And nobody can touch us. Nobody can touch us on either one. And what we're doing is advancing on both more than anyone else. And so that's really where I see things going in the future, is more in that direction, where more changes to support hard consensus, more changes to support soft consensus. And then eventually, the beauty of this approach is also that we have different scaling constraints than other people. So we don't have to, because we're not, our blockchain isn't processing all of this random code that requires God knows how much computational energy. Transaction throughput is not, we're not remotely near the cap of our transaction throughput. And we have the most used blockchain apps in the world. So while there are other blockchains that are fixated on solutions around transaction throughput, we have plenty of room to go with transaction throughput. And so we can focus on the stuff that really matters when you're building a decentralized application, which is the size of your nodes. Because if you're delivering, if you have a web application that people actually use, which we're the only ones that have that, what matters to the web developer. So what we see in the blockchain space is total disregard for the wants and needs of ordinary users and ordinary web developers. You have blockchain developers who are not web developers making weird decisions based on their weird logic, as opposed to thinking about what matters to web developers and users. And what matters to web developers is that, okay, great, I've got this application that is powered by a blockchain and that users love, and the node that I'm running this blockchain on, even though the blockchain isn't that big, the blockchain isn't even 200 gigabytes yet. That's nothing. 2 terabytes, 8 terabytes, that's getting to a big size. What matters is the node you have to run to serve all of the traffic that's pinging you. And so that's why we're working on Mira now. And Mira is going to address that scalability constraint. And nobody's working on that. And so after that, in the distant future, maybe a year, 2 years from now, then we'll probably be getting around to something called modular blockchain. And what that'll be is a blockchain, Steem or a descendant of Steem that Steem integrates with, that blockchain plugins use as like a reconciliation layer. So like you're an app developer, you'll run basically a blockchain plugin that is limited. It's limited to maybe your app, the information you need, the hard consensus smart contracts that you need, the soft consensus JavaScript code that you need, and then it reconciles down to a much bigger blockchain that is stored in commodity hardware, which is what Mira does. So Mira has to come first. But once you move the blockchain into commodity hardware, that's really the hard part, because we can store 20 terabytes, a 20 terabyte blockchain on a hard drive someplace at very low cost. If the nodes and the blockchain, if the blockchain nodes that people are pinging are separate and somewhere else, that's where the cost is. So you want a decentralized network of blockchains and blockchain nodes that are absorbing all the traffic, that are then reconciling down to a shared decentralized ledger that can be audited by anybody who wants to. So I think, and Vandenberg has been calling this a modular blockchain. So that's the future that I see. Does that make sense? Yeah. Any questions there?
No, that was just very insightful, very exciting to hear the different developments that are going to be coming down the pike here in the next number of years. Always great to look forward to those new advancements, and just stick around for the ride. It's going to be awesome. But yeah, I think that's basically what we wanted to touch upon today. Andrarchy, thank you so much for being here with me today. It's been a pleasure, and we'll be seeing you down in Austin next month for Global Block Builders.
See you in Austin.
All right, take care.